Hello, everyone, and welcome this evening to our webinar on achieving financial well-being as a locum. We are joined today by Victor, who is our expert today, who's going to be sharing all of his knowledge with you. So just before we kick off, we'll go through a little bit of housekeeping to begin. So just to let you know, this session is in fact being recorded, and we will be sending the recording out to you afterwards as well. We have a few minutes to set aside at the end for some Q&A, and we're sort of expecting today's session to be around 1 hour. So what we are covering today is, obviously we'll go through introductions so you know who you're actually seeing today. We'll go over understanding financial well-being and everything that's involved with that, how you can actually transform your own personal financial management using LAL, and then also some practical tips for financial well-being and our Q&A at the end. So introductions, I'll kick off with myself just while I'm still speaking. So I am Sarah Murray. I am part of the marketing team here at Locum. And Victor, I'll hand over to yourself for you to do your own introductions.
Hello, everyone. My name is Victor. I'm a pharmacist, Locum pharmacist, and financial protection advisor with Access Financial Services. Thank you. It's great to be here, Sarah. Thank you.
Good. And feel free to drop comment and questions throughout the presentation in the comments below. We will be moderating them and we will answer them at the end. But we shall kick off. Victor, I will hand it over to yourself.
Awesome. So guys and ladies, welcome. So I'm just gonna put it out there. It's my first webinar. Sarah's holding my hands here. I'll try to. She called me an expert earlier, which was a bit daunting. Thanks, Sarah, but yeah, I'll try to do my best. So as you know, the topic for today is achieving financial well-being as a locum. I've been a locum pharmacist since 2020, so that's 5 years now. I've been qualified as a pharmacist for about 7-8 years now. So I understand locum life, and that's why when the opportunity came up to work with Locate Locum, which everyone knows is like one of the big, locum community, put it that way. They're very big on supporting locums and just helping out with our finances. I thought, why not? Considering, obviously, at the moment, I'm a protection advisor with Access Financial Services. So today, we're talking about financial well-being as locums. It's actually an interesting time to talk about this because I know it's obviously we're getting into the new tax season. So I thought, obviously, what better time to bring up this topic, right? So financial well-being, I pulled up a definition there. I just put it off Google. It talks about just learning how to manage your money and resources responsibly with an eye toward long-term financial security. But personally, what I really wanted to start with was I think we're all familiar with Elon Musk, right? He's the richest man in the world today. So I think we can all agree that Elon is not losing sleep over his financial well-being. He's just not. The question is why, though? Yes, he runs multiple billion-dollar businesses at the same time, from X to Tesla to SpaceX. He's launching rockets, satellites, building tunnels. The list goes on. And last time I checked, the man has 13 kids. I'm still trying to wrap my head around that. You can probably tell I'm a fan, right? But
only a little bit.
Yeah, you can probably tell I'm a fan, right? But why did I bring up Elon Musk? I brought him up because, okay, I always wonder, like, how does he do it? How is he able to, like, juggle so much, right? And it boils down to something very simple, something I think we as locums can all apply. And that's the fact that Elon Musk invests heavily in his businesses, right? He invests in people, he invests in technology, he invests in tools, even the factories that keep his businesses running smoothly. And that's all intentional. And that way he's able to free up time to really focus on the areas of his strengths and take on even more crazy adventures. I'm sure we're probably thinking at this point, okay, well, that's good for Elon, right? But what has that got to do with me? I'm not launching rockets, I'm a locum, right? And that's fair enough. That's a fair question. But the core principle that I would like us to focus on today is the concept of strategic investment, right? Um, I'm basically just here to say that just like Elon is running several businesses at the same time, as locums, we are running a business as well, right? Locuming is a business. And if we want to achieve financial well-being, we have to treat locuming like a business, right? So I felt like that was the first step. And that is one thing that we all have in common with Elon Musk is we're all running our personal businesses. One of the biggest mistakes I see us making as locums is that we don't invest enough in our businesses. We only invest when it's mandatory, like indemnity insurance and GPH renewals, which Sarah is smiling because they get on us about our indemnity insurance, otherwise we can't book shifts, right? But that is a mandatory investment towards our business. But I think that, in my opinion, to achieve financial well-being as a locum, I don't think that is going to cut it. I think we have to go beyond the mandatory investments to looking at really treating ourselves as a business. Whatever, now going back to the definition of financial well-being, the truth is financial well-being means different things to different people. So, because we're all individuals, and it also depends what stage of life we're in. For some of us right now, it could just be, saving for retirement. For others, it could be earning more money or, trying to save more money, trying to make sure I have a certain amount of income coming in every month. So, whatever financial well-being means to you, the point I'm trying to make is it's going to be really tough to achieve it as locums if we don't see ourselves as a business that needs investment. All right. So first things first, we want to try and identify, okay, what is my version of financial well-being? What am I working towards right now? Am I trying to save more money? Am I trying to make sure I hit this certain level of income every month? Am I trying to just live debt-free? So what is it for you? That's the first step. And the next question would be, okay, well, what are the actions I need to take that will get me there? Right? What are the tools I need to invest in that will help me get there quicker? Right? And I figured the way to arrive at the answers to these questions, again, we'll have to look at Locuming as a business, right? So now every business has two components, including Locuming, right? There's assets and then there's liabilities, right? Assets generate income for the business and liabilities drain income. Liabilities take income off the business, right? So if Locuming is your business, as a locum, what that means is you are the asset, right? You are the income generating asset in the business, right? If you're not working, you're not making any money, simple as that. Okay. So what that means is you have to invest in you, right? You have to invest in the tools that would help you generate income and reduce your liabilities. Okay. Now for locums, I found like two key areas where I thought like if we focused our like investments, if we took those key areas as areas to invest in, we could basically like increase our income. I can't say how much. It would still depend on the individual, but I thought if we focused on these two key areas, it would do well for us. The first one is tracking our income and expenses, right? That's number one. And number two is booking higher rate shifts and making sure we can cover those shifts, right? I'll speak from experience, and I know many of my colleagues, deal with this as well. As you said, it's tax season, right? October, January, it gets crazy as well. We feel really stressed out. And that goes back to what I said about Elon Musk, who just invests in his businesses so that he can focus on the areas of his strengths, right? We are not accountants. I personally hate Excel sheets, like, and I've done that for years as a locum. Like, I personally hate having to, go back and try and figure out my mileage and, where was I on the 5th of April 2022. It's just long. It's just stressful. No, none of us want to be doing that. So that's what makes dealing with our taxes stressful. But I've discovered there are two reasons why that happens, right? And that is because number one, we don't know our exact income, and number two, we don't know our exact expenses, right? Those are the two reasons why that happens, really. And honestly, that's not our fault, right? It's just the nature of our business, right? From month to month, our income changes, right? Maybe one month you covered 10 shifts, the next month you covered 15, and same goes for your expenses. You've made 10 trips this month, and the next month you made 15. So that's the nature of our business. Our income is not fixed. It's always going to change, and that's what makes it stressful, right? So what do we um, what do we do? Obviously, bearing in mind that our income is always going to change. And again, as I just have to say this as well, we've heard the saying, it's not how much you make, it's how much you keep, right? Now, it's very difficult to know what we are keeping if we don't have a clear picture of our income and expenses, right? It's not possible, right? It's and I realize as well that's the reason why, again, we feel quite stressed when it comes times to like pay our taxes. Because, like, imagine you've covered shifts, you've earned, like, let's say, 70,000 pounds in the year, right? That means nothing if you gave it all away in expenses and taxes, because you've essentially kept nothing for yourself, right? But the mistake that I've made is I spent money as if I earned 70,000 pounds a year, and that's wrong, right? We kind of just leave it to our account, to the accountants to, to deal with it and sort it, but it does get stressful. And so I have found that, just this lack of clarity around our income and our expenses, it just leads to a lot of problems that could be avoided. Um, I was talking to a locum friend 2 weeks ago, and he told me, "Yo, I have my holidays for the year planned already," because I was, trying to see if we could do something together. He said, "Yo, my year is already planned. Like, my holiday is already booked. All that is sorted." And that's probably the same for some of us here on the webinar right now. We probably have our holidays sorted, but the problem with that is, as locums, how do we know, like, what to properly budget for our holidays if we're not tracking our income and expenses, like, monthly or regularly, right? Again, as I said, we don't have a fixed income. So it's not like we can say, okay, well, this month I'm going to earn this and I'm going to keep this aside for my holiday. It's quite tough to do. So every month, I think my suggestion would be to keep an eye on it. Um, and that also as well goes back to dealing with our taxes. Is, again, what we can't tell, like, how much to keep aside for HMRC if we're not keeping track of these things, right? I personally have been in a situation where I was forced, I had to work 7 days a week just to catch up on my taxes, just to, like, make sure, like, I wasn't, and it's quite stressful. Like, it's quite stressful. And I know a few friends of mine who have been in the same, like, situation as well. So it's definitely not something I would advise. Okay. But as I said, the solution to that is just keeping an eye on our incomes, keeping an eye on our expenses. Um, so again, it's something that we need to put as priority, and that is, again, why it's actually quite simple now. Like myself, I've been looking in for what, 8 years now. At the time we didn't have LAL Pro, which obviously I think is fantastic. I think it's amazing. I think I've been using it for months now. Shout out to Stevie at Locum Help, who can help with that. I've been using it for months, and I just think it's amazing. It does it for you, right? You don't have to. It just generates it. Like, you don't have to bother about Excel sheets and all of that, right? All you have to do is, like, end of the day, end of the shift, just put in what you've done, and it does the rest pretty much, right? So that takes care of that. Talking about generating income as an asset as well. So we've covered tracking your income and your expenses. As I said, the next one would be booking higher rate shifts. Okay. Making sure that you're earning more for the time that you're working. And again, that is where LAL Pro, I think, is just an unfair advantage, guys. I would really suggest investing in this, because what it does is it tells you the areas, it tells you the pharmacies where you could get shifts for higher rates, and you can kind of like just compare and contrast, right? Another thing as well is when those shifts come up, when those shifts that you could probably earn the most come up, you're one of the first people to know about it, and then you could just quickly, easily just book the shift. Okay, so those are the two key areas I think that take advantage of, right? So we've covered. Sorry, just a bit of noise in the background. Okay, so um, we've covered income generation and just increasing the value of our asset as locums, right? Now I want to talk about liabilities, right? Again, as I said, every business has two components, right? Assets and liabilities. So we've covered income generation as an asset, right? And now talking about liabilities, yeah, we want to be asking ourselves questions like, okay, what could possibly reduce my income, right? What could possibly prevent me from covering a shift, right? So aside taking time off for holidays or just intentionally taking a break off work, what are those situations that are outside of my control that could prevent me, the asset, from generating income for my business? Yeah. Again, through personal experience, which for time purposes I can't get into at the moment, and it's something like all of like, as long as you're human, you've had to deal with these three things. It's sickness, it's injuries, and accidents, right? All three are unexpected. You don't know when it's going to happen, right? But it does happen, and as I said, it happens to all of us. Okay. But where it gets tricky as a locum is the fact that you do not have like a sick pay package, which you would usually get from work, right? You don't have that. You don't have that safety net, right? So ideally, what you want to do is make sure that you create that safety net for yourself, okay? And when you think about it, as locums, we're exposed to all kinds of risk. So in my new job, obviously as a protection advisor, we basically just like assess risk and try to find ways to manage it, right? And looking at it from like a locum's perspective, we're exposed to all kinds of risk, right? I remember when, I think we all remember COVID, right? I remember when COVID hit. I was one of the first ones to get it, and and I got it so early. Like, I didn't even understand what it was at the time, because as I said, I was one of the first ones to get it. All I knew was, okay, I've run through 2 packs of cold and flu tablets. This is not normal. This is not your normal cold and flu. Like, this isn't this. There's something about this. I was knocked out for about a week just dealing with COVID. Okay, but looking back now, it makes sense why that would be the case. Why I would be one of the first ones to get it, because as locums, obviously we have a lot of patients coming in from like different backgrounds, different countries. They're coming in for help with all kinds of like infections, illnesses. It's quite easy to pick up some of these things, right? When we talk about like accidents and injuries, locum work requires a lot of travel, right? So you're almost always on the road, really. When you think about it, sometimes we spend as long as like 2 hours on the road, just back and forth from work. Okay, so these are all risks that locums are exposed to. And I have to talk about the fact that in pharmacy now, it's a lot of complaints about just the amount of work we're having to do. It almost feels like we're doctors now, which is good, which is I had a lady last like 2 weeks ago tell me, oh, I would rather see the pharmacist than see the doctor. So that makes you feel good, but it's still work, right? So we're having to do a lot more in terms of pharmacy first, in terms of even dispensing, in terms of vaccinations. It's a lot more work that we're having to do. If you're not pacing yourself, and if you're not trying to get as much rest in between shifts, honestly, it's easy to see how one can quickly break down and fall sick, right? Because again, as I say, we are humans. Everyone just has like a certain level of pain that you can handle at any one time. So if you're not like really like taking care of yourself and getting as much rest, you can fall sick, and then what does that mean? That means you're going to be off work for how long, and you're not making any money at all. So that clearly goes against anyone's version of financial well-being. Whatever it is, that goes against anyone's version of financial well-being, right? So these are the situations that can immediately turn our most valuable assets, being ourselves. These situations like sickness, accidents, and injuries, it can quickly turn us into a liability for our business, right? Um, I'm sure. I'm sure if we're being honest, I'm sure many of us here we've covered shifts where we knew the rate was low, but we just had to do it, right? I'm sure we've all done that. We knew, okay, well, I could be earning more. You're thinking to yourself, last week I earned this amount here, and now it's this. Like, what is going on? I'm sure we've all done that. I'm sure we've all been there, and we still booked that shift, right? Why did we do it? Like, the reason we did it is because like having some money coming in is better than none at all, right? You'd rather have something coming than have nothing coming in at all, right? But that's the risk that we face when we're sick, when we're injured, or when we have an accident, right? As I said, these things are unexpected, and it can happen to anyone, right? And so, again, it's a huge problem. When we talk about our income, we really need to like think about it, because income is money, right? Income determines your lifestyle pretty much. Income determines where you live, what food you eat, what car you drive, what clothes you wear. The list goes on, right? And these are all bills. These are all bills that don't stop just because, I don't want to say just because obviously it's not easy. It's tough when you're going through things that maybe you didn't create or cause yourself, right? But it's our nature. Like that's what human beings. So these things happen, all right. But what we want to do is we want to make sure that when these things happen, it still doesn't affect our financial well-being, right? And that is what protection is about. My new job, that's what it's about, right? Um, think of all the things your money allows you to do, right? We already went through the list, like paying rent, mortgage, and the rest of it. We actually just obviously, I think this weekend was Mother's Day, right? And I got an expensive perfume for my mom, and that made me feel good. That made me feel amazing, right? I felt, just seeing the smile on her face, I felt so good about it, right? And I think for everyone else, for Sarah, it could be like a Netflix subscription. I don't know. Well, everyone has that thing, or even your holidays. Everyone has that thing that they love to do with their money, and it just makes them feel good about it. But without protection, we basically are just putting those things at risk, right? And it's quite quickly could just go all of a sudden. Okay, especially for locums, especially if you don't have any money coming in, right? Okay, so the question is, well, I kind of answered the question, but I guess the question is, how do we prevent these liabilities from affecting our financial well-being? And that is where financial protection comes into place, because we know that for the most part, like sickness, accidents, and injuries can happen to anyone. As I said, again, bear in mind as locums, that's what we help patients with. Like we help patients find solutions to these kinds of problems. So it can happen. So if we cannot prevent it, um, we can make sure still that it doesn't affect our financial well-being. And that is where, as I said, income protection and personal insurance in general comes into play. Income protection is income protection basically pays you what you would usually earn from work, right? It's just as if you were working, except you were not, like obviously due to circumstances beyond your control, right? So you're still making money, but but now you're not having to worry about bills or eating into your savings, or trying to rush your recovery, trying to get back to work. Okay, you could just take your time, get your energy back, and just try and heal and get back to work when you can. Okay, um, so the way I think of it is, I think of it this way. If you had a gadget, or if you had like a machine in your basement that would spit out, let's say you earn what, 70,000 pounds a year. If you had a machine in your basement that just spits that out every year, if you're not into taking risk, because some people like to take risk, and that's okay. But if you're not one to take risk, I think that you would take steps to like protect that machine. I think you would take steps to protect that gadget. And as locums, we are that gadget. As locums, you're that machine that's generating this amount of money in a year. And I think if there are situations outside of your control, right, that could stop you, or that could affect that machine, or that could affect you making that amount of money in a year. I think the proper thing to do, especially if you're serious about achieving financial well-being, I think the proper thing to do would be to try to find ways to protect that. So, in my opinion, as I said, investing in your business, investing in yourself, um, that's the key to achieving financial well-being as a local, right? So if we're proactive just regarding our finances, income, expenses, booking shifts at maximum rates, making sure we have access to those shifts early, and putting ourselves in a situation where our potential liabilities can turn into assets that pay us, as opposed to things that drain income of us. I think if we did these things, it's impossible not to achieve financial well-being as a local. So that's all I have for today. I'm gonna leave it here.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Victor. That was absolutely fantastic. So I've learned so much about my own financial well-being. So I'm sure everyone on the locum side of things has learned so much from yourself as well. I am going to jump in now and tell you a little bit about how LAL Pro can help you actually transform your financial management. Now, Victor, you use some fantastic examples of it in the real setting. So what is LAL Pro? For anyone who maybe isn't aware or hasn't had a chance to use it yet. Basically, LAL Pro is our all-in-one solution for locums that helps you manage your work life all in one place. From booking shifts right through to managing your finances, LAL Pro has you covered. Now, LAL Pro was actually developed in collaboration with locums. We have been working with locums for 8 years now. We have worked with over 44,000 locums now across the UK. And that's locums who are locuming full time, locums who are maybe picking up the odd shift, or just, they're coming up to that holiday where they want to have that little bit of extra money in their back pocket. So we really have used all of this insight that we have gathered over the years, and then through tailored focus groups, to try and develop a solution really tailored towards the locum lifestyle. And LAL Pro is in fact that solution. So what do you actually get as part of LAL Pro? So with LAL Pro, you get all of the features that you already know and love with Locata Locum. So that's access to the hundreds of thousands of shifts on the platform at any one time. It does the intros to the 8,000 different employers in the system, really helps you find locum work easily. LAL Pro kicks it up a notch by adding and unlocking some extra features and some benefits as well to really help enhance your locum experience. One of which, as Victor, you mentioned earlier, is this early access or early notifications to some of these shifts. So what this is your favorite shifts. So those shifts or those stores that you've hearted on the platform that you really love working in. What you do is you get an early bird notification when that particular store uploads a shift. So that gives you that little bit of an extra advantage over maybe non-LAL Pro users, as you get that information first, which is obviously amazing. Next up, again, Victor, as you have mentioned before, is the invoice management. Now, this is the bread and butter of what LAL Pro is. It's what it started off as in September, and that is a way for you to generate invoices of all the income that you have been making through LAL Pro, through Locata Locum, rather. And with that, you're able to generate invoices and send them. And then also it keeps tracks of invoices for those companies that maybe use automated payments as well. You're able to then use this system to actually reconcile your income in the bank, because I know that it might be, well, we've sent this invoice, but has it actually been paid into my bank account? And it can be sometimes difficult to actually keep a track of that. Exactly what you were saying, Victor, of going, oh, I know I worked that shift and that should have gave me however many hundreds of pounds, but did that ever actually hit my bank? I can't remember because it was November. Yeah. And it's hard to remember all of that, Victor. I know you know yourself.
Yeah, that's 100% true. Very, very true. It's and you have to remember, like, at some point in like next year or something. It's just it's crazy.
I know, and this is particularly poignant, beginning the tax year, this is sort of when you're starting to get all of this, and it's really, it's a good time of year to sort of get all of this stuff set up before the new tax year starts. So you're actually setting yourself up for success.
Yeah, so you're not stressing on Excel sheets if you're like me.
Oh, exactly. I know. Flip spreadsheets. No one wants to sit and see spreadsheets in their dreams.
Oh my gosh, no. But not anymore though.
No, not anymore, because LAL Pro does that all for you, which is obviously fantastic. Another feature that we have with LAL Pro is our insights and our reporting. Now, Victor, you also touched on some of this, is where you're actually able to see sort of shift rate trends that happen. Maybe if you're a locum who maybe likes to take advantage of those stayaways, and you maybe don't necessarily know, you're traveling, you don't necessarily know what the best rate is in that particular area. Is this considered a good rate? Is this rate particularly high or low in this area? And this is where some of our shift rate trends and our reporting features within LAL Pro really do sort of buckle down into the detail there, and you can actually see all of that. So you can ensure that whenever you are making those decisions about what shifts that you're going to book, that you're making the best decisions possible. Yeah. And again, that's heightened as well with our shift rate intelligence, where actually before you book a shift at all, you actually get information on what the average shift rate is in that specific area. And one of the really important features is, for both of our insight reporting and our shift rate intelligence, is this is data that is based off actual booked shifts. It's not hearsay. It's not what you hear of a local in like the WhatsApp groups, because sometimes that data can get out of date really quickly, or you hear, like, there's always going to be outliers. There's always going to be people who are really lucky, who are getting crazy money for one shift, because there is that one independent pharmacy. It was just so desperate to get cover. But this is actual live data that is based off shifts that have actually been booked and worked. So, you've got really good insight into what is going on in any one area as well, which is obviously fantastic, because there are hundreds of thousands of shifts that are being booked every week. So this really gives you that insight as well, which I know, Victor, you said yourself that you find very useful.
No, 100%. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it's just comparing, as I said, what should I be getting, and what, can I just, the way I think about it is this, right? If the rate isn't what you would expect, you could just wait a bit and see how it goes, and then you could get back in there. Or if you're into your holidays, clearly I love holidays, or I don't go as much as I would like anyway. Into your holidays, you can kind of study and see and say, okay, well, during this period, this is, it gets high around this period. So maybe don't go on holiday at this time. Maybe go at this time, right? So it's just those kind of decisions, and you add it all up, small wins, you add it all up, it turns out massive for locums.
Exactly. Or you can even take the opportunity to holiday while working. Those stayaways that down some of the sort of peripheries tends to get fantastic rates. Highlands of Scotland tend to be fantastic if anyone ever wants a wee trip, and they're beautiful scenery as well if you want a holiday.
Cornwall is nice. Cornwall is nice.
Exactly. Yeah. So as well as those fantastic features that we have discussed, you also get a couple of other additional benefits that we are constantly adding to as part of LAL Pro as well. One of which is our partnership with Tax Scouts. Now, Tax Scouts is a third-party partner of Locate and Locum that helps you actually complete your self-assessment. Now, I know that a lot of us will have just completed our self-assessment, so that's really fresh in mind. And because our invoice management software is so slick and smooth with LAL Pro, Tax Scouts has actually partnered up with us to give us our locums a fantastic discount. They will partner you up with a chartered accountant, and you can basically export all of the lovely invoices you've collected with LAL Pro, send them off to this particular chartered accountant that you are paired up with Tax Scouts, and they will actually complete your self-assessment on your behalf, which is fantastic. And this is a fraction of a cost of what finding an accountant is of yourself. I've spoken to locums who have spent crazy money on accountants over the years, and with Tax Scouts you do just get that discounted price with Locate a Locum. The other thing that you get is access to our Level Up Rewards Fast Tracked. So our Level Up Rewards program has been going for, I think, close to 3 years now anyway, if not just over 2, if not 3 years. And with that, you get your cash back towards your DBS, as you mentioned at the beginning. Victor, we are very fond of everyone having their DBSs and their indemnity insurances, but this is sort of to help sort of alleviate the cost of that. So you get your £50 towards your indemnity insurance and your DBS costs. You also get access to our third-party partner as well, called ONSI, which gives you access to discounts on some high street stores. They also give you discounts on fuel cards as well, which is obviously fantastic for all those driving to and from shifts. And with LAL Pro, all of those rewards are automatically unlocked. So you don't actually have to get to that shift marker that you normally have to access these rewards, which is fantastic. And then again, as if LAL Pro couldn't get any better, it is actually tax deductible. Which, Gurmals, that means it's free, right, Victor?
Pretty much, guys. Pretty much.
So you can claim LAL Pro back whenever you are completing your self-assessment as a business expense. So really, whenever you're thinking about it long term, it is really a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So that is everything on LAL Pro, and Victor has covered everything on the financial well-being side of things. So we do have a good few minutes left if we have any Q&A. So feel free to drop any questions in the comments below. And yes, so Victor, I have a question actually for yourself while we are waiting for some locums to pop in some questions. So for yourself, what do you think is the biggest game changer in terms of your financial well-being journey? What do you think is, if you had to pick only one thing to do, what would that be?
Well, I mean, the biggest game changer would be really just the, booking shifts at max rate, right? End of the day, we try to make as much as we can in the time we have. So I think for me, that would be the the biggest game changer. I have a locum friend who he pulled up his phone and just showing me the Excel sheets. Like, it's just something about Excel. It's just which I don't mind it. It's all good, but again, talking about strengths and weaknesses, that's just not my thing. So, and he had like the distances and the mileages and the rates, and I was telling him like you could LAL, Lao Pro, I say LAL Pro. Lao Pro just does this easily. You could just compare and contrast. So for me, that would be the biggest thing. I think for a lot of other locums as well. Because I have conversations with locums, and just the pharmacy industry, not healthcare in general, having to deal with reduced funding, put it that way. I think that's affected locum rates as well. So anything that gives you that edge, and again, just early access to those shifts, I think that's been the biggest thing for me, really.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Let me see. People are being shy, I think, with their questions, Victor, or potentially we've covered everything so incredibly well that people don't have any questions.
Yeah.
So we'll go with that, maybe. People continue to drop questions below if they come up. But while we are still waiting on some questions coming in, I'm going to take a little bit of a moment to let you know about our 10% off discount that we are currently giving for LAL Pro. So you obviously get access to LAL Pro free for 30 days if you haven't tried it before. So really, it's worth a go, even just to play about with some of the features that Victor and I have discussed today. You can scan the QR code on screen in order to access and sign up. And then if you apply the code PRO10 at checkout, you get 10% off your first month. And yes, so that is fantastic. And Anna, I have seen your question and I will DM you personally to try to get that resolved, just so you know, because I don't think I can contact you about that on here. But then apart from LAL Pro, I will pass it over to yourself, Victor, for you to let them know how they can get in contact with you if they have any other further questions.
So I've got my email on there. It's etochi.uzoagbara@accessfs.co.uk, but you could quickly easily reach me on LinkedIn. It's but my name's Etochi Victor Uzoagbara. That's me on LinkedIn. I got my mobile number on there. If you're a locum and you don't know how to go about income protection, you just you want to know more, I could help you with that. I can help you with just protecting yourself, protecting your income, protecting your family. I'd love to help. So reach me on LinkedIn. You got my mobile number on there. That's it, really. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. And as I say, we'll be hanging about. I'll be hanging about in the comments of this for the next few minutes anyway. So if there are any other questions, please feel free to drop them below, and we can get, or even send them in. My email is sarah@locum.com if you have any other further questions. As I say, this session tonight has been recorded, and we will send it out to you afterwards. So for that, I will leave you. And we will say thank you so much for joining us this evening, and we shall be speaking soon, I'm sure. So cheerio, guys.
Bye, guys.